web service is actually pretty popular nowadays, which is actually widely used for producer consumers. So there will be actually basically the service provider creating web service, then people actually consume it. But comes with it, we actually need to secure the application. So today we are going to talk about KeyCloak. KeyCloak is actually one of the service provider we can use to basically to secure the application. So it's actually an open source identity access management system. It's actually built from GBoss team, which is ultimately belongs to the Red Hat team, Red Hat company. So I already have my KeyCloak actually running locally, but if you don't have it, then basically this is actually the way is actually to download and also try to install. So here my so I already have this thing running. So this is actually Docker KeyCloak running here on A080. So if we actually opening A080 port, so if we come here, admin console. So basically, so the first time actually when people start KeyCloak, you need to have this. So this is actually under the master RAM or the admin account. So people actually need to provide the admin account. So this is actually provided through environmental variable. So I already provide mine, which is actually admin. So if we just log in using admin here, we will be able to basically see the KeyCloak admin console. So from the admin console, the first thing when people comes in is actually there's only one RAM, which is master. Master is basically hosting the admin accounts. Then for each team or each department, they should have actually their own RAM. So for this case, it's actually called Flask app. But for different teams, like let's say it's front office or back office or maybe engineering team, so they should have corresponding RAM. So maybe called engineering or maybe back office engineering. Then within RAM is basically have a list of clients, a list of users. Some of the setup actually are, for example, when people log in, whether there is an option for them to register themselves. Then if they want to register, whether they can actually verify the emails. Then something like whether the email is actually can be used as username, these kind of things. So this is actually some setup. Basically, when people register it, they will be using that email setup, basically sending out the emails for verification. I already have some client setup here, which is a Flask application. So it's actually this piece. So this application is already running here. It actually have this setup there. So authentication JSON. So this setup is actually corresponding to the KeyCloak setup. So basically, for this RAM, currently RAM is actually for Flask app. So I'm actually connecting to Flask app. Then correspondingly, I'm actually using the auth URL. One thing to know is actually for the new version and also old version. In the old version, it's actually something like this. So there's actually a path additional layer called auth. Then under auth, basically RAM. But in new versions, it's actually directly under the root path. So this is actually the URL basically need to config. So once these things is actually config, another thing is actually regarding the credential. So credential need to have, basically the clients actually need to know what's the client ID and also what's the secret in order for this client to be able to talk to it. So this secret, match this secret. RAM is actually that RAM. Then there is a client ID as well. Client ID should be here. So this will be the client ID. This one is actually a different Python package. I'm actually primarily using Flask OIDC here, but it's also possible to use KeyCloak OpenID here. So for that OpenID, basically we need to pass in client ID and also for client secret, then the URL. So it's actually much simpler setup than Flask OIDC. But ultimately, it's actually the same thing. So basically, they need to have the key in order to verify themselves. So with that, I already have some users actually I have set up. So I'm basically log in using that user, then we will see how it looks like. So one more thing is, so this application right now is actually running on this port 5000. So if you actually go to 500 port, this is actually old section. It actually got a response. But since it's actually old section, if I'm actually going to refresh the page, it actually shoots. the session should be already invalid. So it basically should actually go to this root path. Root path is basically requiring for login using the OIDC configuration. So OIDC configuration is actually still here. So OpenID app is using this one. So if we do that things, it actually should direct us to the login page. So let's try that. Yeah, so it will direct basically to the setup. So CC setup is basically corresponding to the auth JSON. So it's actually under RAM Flask protocol. Then auth correspondingly got the client ID here. This client ID is basically the client ID we pass in. So let me log in first. I already created a user. But if people don't have a user, they can basically register themselves. So basically enter the username and password, those kind of things, and also enter the email. Then the email basically will receive a verification email. Once they click it, then the user will become registered. I'm actually logging here. Okay. So this is actually a simple application. The only purpose I'm actually demonstrating and also getting back this token itself is because sometimes actually people need to verify maybe a different services. So for here, I got two endpoints. One endpoint is actually simply for login. So I'm actually basically logging to prove I am who I am. For here, it's actually user one. So I'm actually proving, okay, I'm user one. Then once I'm actually proof that I actually got the token, so this is actually user one's token. Then with that token, actually it can go to different services. Here, the service is actually within the same file, but it can be different. So if we want to, for example, we want to access this private API or private endpoints, we can actually give it a token. This is actually probably still the old token. So if we actually use this token, okay, it will basically see invalid. So because that's actually the old tag token, so it will basically see it's actually invalid. I don't think it's actually really locked here, but that's all right. So that's basically the invalid token. So we should actually give the new token here. Copy this token. Then click here. Now it is actually should be registered. So basically this is how it works. So basically in Flask, basically we actually need to tell how we actually authenticate ourselves, which is through the client secret. Then from that we can basically able to communicate with KeyCloak. So from KeyCloak, they will help us basically to prove the person is actually the person who he claim is. So it got the user ID, the password, which case for this case is actually user one, and also the password is password. Then login. So from that, we can actually maybe direct to another service or maybe a web page. Or another way is we can actually give back the token. Then people can actually use that token to do the corresponding actions. So that's probably it for this section.